Alright everyone, welcome back to Bleach Brave Souls, and today we're doing a video about Uryu Ishida. Keep in mind that this is just my personal speculation and opinion, so take this video with a grain of salt. Without further ado, let's get into it. So now that it has been confirmed that K-Lab is fully committed to bringing the Stern Ritters to the game, I feel it's safe to assume that a 1000-year Blood War version of Uryu will eventually be released as well. The issue I think K-Lab will face, however, is that Uryu simply did not get much screen time during the 1000-year Blood War until towards the end of the arc. And while he was in fact an important part of the story, we really did not see much of his new fighting abilities. Though I believe it's safe to assume that his base Quincy abilities are significantly more powerful after being unlocked by You Watch. So, what can K-Lab do to make a 1000-year Blood War version of Uryu that is different from his previous versions? Well, let's start first with his character design. This one is fairly straightforward, since Uryu does indeed receive a new design during the 1000-year Blood War. In fact, K-Lab actually has two routes they could take with a new Uryu character model. They can choose to make him with his Stern Ritter cloak, as we see him initially, or they can choose to make him without the cloak, as we see him during his encounter with Haschwald. Now, if it were me making the decision, I would choose to create 1000-year Blood War Uryu wearing his Quincy cloak, primarily because I think it stands out more from any of his other variants. Also, by doing this, you would still be able to see his base uniform anyway, underneath the cloak. But the main reason I'd prefer this version is simply because I think it makes him look more badass, which at the end of the day is the most important thing. So let's move on to Uryu's powers. What do we actually see him do in 1000-year Blood War that can be translated to actual gameplay? Well, naturally, he still has his high leg bogan, his basic bow and arrow attacks. This would be the obvious choice for his normal attack string. Obviously, I feel K-Lab should take care to make these arrows look more powerful and hit harder to reflect the implied power up Uryu received from You Watch. Now the real question is, which bow should K-Lab use? Uryu reveals two different bows during 1000-year Blood War. For this, I think the answer is obviously his X-shaped bow. This is the bow he uses while fighting Haschwald, and it's safe to assume it's also his most powerful bow. Now, I know some of you will point out the fact that Uryu does not actually use this particular bow while still wearing the Quincy cloak, and that would certainly be a valid point. But I think I'd be willing to defer this small detail in the interest of aesthetics. Basically, I just think the X-shaped bow would look better with the Quincy cloak, even though it's not technically canon. Alright, so what else does Uryu do in 1000-year Blood War? Well, he still has his Licht Regen and his Seelie Schneider, and while these are abilities we've seen from Uryu before, they could still be potentially used as a strong attack 1. Licht Regen could simply be a barrage of arrows forward, strong attack 1, or K-Lab could use Seelie Schneider as a dash forward, strong attack 1. Of these two possibilities, Seelie Schneider would probably be less likely, as ranged characters don't normally get dashing forward strong attack 1s. Now strong attack 2 is where things could get interesting. In 1000-year Blood War, You Watch bestows upon Uryu the power of the Antithesis. This ability can reverse the events that have occurred between two people. So for example, in Uryu's fight with Haschwald, Uryu was wounded pretty badly and Haschwald was unscathed. The Antithesis power allowed Uryu to reverse this situation. So basically, Haschwald received Uryu's wounds, and Uryu received Haschwald's good health. Now, to represent this ability in game, I can see K-Lab giving Uryu a healing strong attack 2, which also would do good damage. But to make it more accurate to the manga, maybe they could tweak it so that the heal only heals Uryu, but it heals him to full strength. Now maybe this is slightly overpowered, but I feel it's balanced out by the fact that the heal would only affect Uryu himself. Likewise, they could represent the Antithesis with a boost strong attack 2 and tweak it in a similar fashion, to the point where it only boosts Uryu, but the effect is greater than a normal boost. Also, this strong attack 2 heal or boost, whichever, would have to inflict good damage, but perhaps KLab could work in a mechanic where the damage done increases based on how low Uryu is on health. And finally, for strong attack 3, KLab could maybe integrate the reishi chips Uryu had planted throughout the war welt. I won't go into much detail, but in the manga, Uryu had scattered these reishi chips throughout Yuwak's palace that when activated by his Reiatsu would explode and destroy everything. So perhaps KLab could do a strong attack 3 where Uryu throws these reishi chips around himself, which would then explode in a full screen strong attack 3. Yes, of course KLab could go with some generic full screen arrow attack, but they've shown with previous Thousand Year Blood War characters that they do in fact make a conscious effort to be faithful to the manga. And this at last brings us to the special attack for Thousand Year Blood War Uryu. And what else could it be but the Silver Arrow? This is perhaps the most significant contribution to the final battle made by Uryu in the entire Thousand Year Blood War. So basically, all KLab would have to do is create a scene where Uryu fires the arrow, the camera zooms in on the silver arrow tip, and then everything on the screen blows up. Call it a day. Maybe have the special inflict weakening as well. After all, that's basically what it does. And since I forgot to mention it earlier, maybe give Uryu a Quincy killer, but not Stern Ritter killer because I'd rather not see him limited to being a PvP character. And that's about it for my speculation. Uryu is a pretty significant character in the Thousand Year Blood War, and he's one of the main cast, so hopefully KLab will give him a strong Thousand Year Blood War version that pays proper respect to the manga, as I'm sure they will. Anyway, thanks for watching everyone. Let me know your theories and speculations about a potential Thousand Year Blood War version of Uryu in the comments, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye bye.